Welcome back to What's Good in Wrestling. I'm Andrew Pillick. This is the first video under my new name, so hopefully you guys will like this. This is going to be my WWE Mock Draft for the draft that's starting on Friday, and then it's going to be followed up by the second part on Monday. Now, I have a huge whiteboard in front of me. You're going to see graphics as I post them on the screen. I'm in the location that I didn't want to continue filming in, but for today's video, I decided just to do it because I'm ordering something for a backdrop. But this video is just going to be me going through the Raw roster and the SmackDown roster, and I want you guys to comment down below who do you guys think will be on Raw, who will be drafted to SmackDown, what trades could be made, because I think that's something that WWE should implement. Even on draft night, maybe on Raw, the second night they go, I don't know about this pick. You know, you have a guy that I wanted, let's make a trade. Like, you should be able to do that. I think it'd be cool, especially since now, WWE's bringing it to more of like a sports feel. Have them discuss contracts, do really cool stuff like that to make it seem like, like a sporting thing if you want it to be like that. So, I've got the two rosters in front of me, and of course, like every video that anybody films, you're always going to forget something. I'm probably going to forget somebody here, but I went through the roster 2 or 3 times and split them up, so hopefully I didn't forget anybody. So let's waste no more time. We're going to start off with Monday Night Raw. Now, these for the most part are in alphabetical order, but as I was going through, I skipped over some people and I forgot some people's, and I made some switches. So yeah, these are the guys that I named, and I'll give you a quick reasoning for some of them why I believe that they should be on Raw versus on SmackDown and the kind of feuds that could happen. Which I'm also going to be starting a series called Rebooking the WWE, so make sure to stay tuned for that. But this is the roster for Raw. So I started off with Authors of Pain, AOP. I think that they'll, with the teams that I've put on Monday Night Raw here, I think that they make a lot of sense to be on Raw, and they've been doing promos on Raw, so I think that it just makes sense. Then I have Aleister Black. I'd really like to see Aleister Black get a push on this brand, but I also have some other people on this roster that it would make sense that he could have really good feuds with potential storylines that I'd like to get to in another video, but I'm sure WWE would have some good plans for him. Bliss and Cross, because you'll see later why I have them here, but I also feel like they both could just be singles wrestlers on Raw with the talent that I've put here, and that's going to be a common theme, is that you're going to hear me say with other talent here because some of the feuds that I'm going to discuss. I have Mustafa Ali, aka they just call him Ali now, but I think that there's a bunch of guys here that he could face, and it just makes a ton of sense with the champions that are here. I have Andrade, a guy that Ali could potentially have a feud with, and of course with Zelina Vega also being on this brand, and it also kind of makes sense for travel wise with her and Aleister Black. I would hope that WWE would look at stuff like that, but they usually don't. But I think that Andrade being on Raw would be a good thing with the talent that's here. So like, right away, I had like it's top heavy on really good talent with Aleister Black, Ali, and Andrade. I think that those are 3 guys that you can build around with the core of the roster with some bigger names coming up. Then I have the Kabuki Warriors, aka currently the women's tag team champions. So that's why I have Bliss and Cross here, although I don't always want them to be a tag team. But the Kabuki Warriors as champions, I think are going to do really good helping Monday Night Raw. The Iconics, I also have here, I want them to come back. And I think that they could, I know that they're supposed to be like the annoying heel type, but I also feel like they could end up being pretty decent faces just because they're pretty good on the mic. So having them here, they're a tag team. The champions are on this show. I don't want it to be crossed over with the champions being on both shows. I want them to be on Monday Night Raw. I also have Braun Strowman. Now this one is a guy that I feel like could eventually get traded to SmackDown. I was really torn up about where I should place Braun on the roster, but I think it makes sense for him to be on Raw. Next, Bray Wyatt. It only makes sense with what's going on right now. He's the biggest star in the company, and I think Monday Night Raw would like him to be there on their big show that they like to say. Even though I believe SmackDown's going to be the better show, especially if this is how the roster shapes out. So Bray's got to be on Raw. I also have Buddy Murphy. I really would like him to get in a feud with some of the other guys I mentioned earlier. I think that there's a lot of potential for really good secondary storylines on Raw, and Buddy Murphy would be a part of that. Same thing goes for Cesaro and Chad Gable. I think that those 2 guys, could both be on this roster and prove that they both should be getting more time on TV. I know recently Chad Gable has, but Cesaro is a much bigger star than WWE is giving him credit. Let's say Bray Wyatt ends up eventually winning the WWE the Universal Championship. How do you not have Cesaro have a feud with him as the face in that feud? Like, you would get incredible matches out of that. Daniel Bryan's another guy, again, because I could see if Bray Wyatt wins the title, that's another guy that could face him, and you know, now that Bryan's a face again, it makes too much sense to me. I also have Ziggler and Rude on this show. They're the Raw Tag Team Champions, just makes a lot of sense for them there. Elias, I feel like Elias is going to get lost in the shuffle no matter where he goes, and that's unfortunate because he is a big star and he's good on the mic. But WWE needs to find something for him, and I think that Raw will have the right opportunities. Next, I have Jason Jordan here. I don't know if Jason Jordan's career is done. People are telling me that he might be injured. I haven't done enough research on him to see if that's really, you know, the truth. But I could see Jason Jordan coming back and turning heel and potentially going after Chad Gable. I think that would kind of be a decent thing to go off of, just to have another little feud on Monday Night Raw. I also have John Cena here. I can see him being a late pick in the draft and people being stunned by that. The reason why I think that is because they just are going to have big names getting drafted to the rosters even if they're not full-time. Although we could see John Cena come back in a full-time role. He's done a lot of movies recently, and I think he's almost done filming pretty much everything that he's done. The Fast and Furious 9, he's almost done doing that as well. So we'll see. Maybe he comes back. I have the New Day with Kofi Kingston going to Monday Night Raw. This is another guy, if you want to keep Kofi hot, have him go against Bray Wyatt as well. You never know how that feud could work out. They're both talented. You also have the potential of triple threat matches if you want to have Kofi involved in those. I don't think that WWE should give up on making Kofi a guy that's in the main event spot, but I think that moving over to Raw just makes more sense. Lars Sullivan, again, a guy that could get lost in the shuffle. I hope that he ends up doing something. Liv Morgan, I want her to be in the title picture on Raw. Same thing with Natalya. She's just there as like another women's wrestler, a safe worker that can be tossed into a match if you need her to. A lot of people hate Natalya, but she's a great wrestler. Like, you have to give her credit. A lot of the women that are in WWE now have been at least trained or at least helped by Natalya, so it makes sense to have her on Raw, in my opinion. I also have R-Truth, the 24/7 champion. He could end up bouncing back and forth, but I just have him here. I have Sami Zayn, basically because I also have Shinsuke Nakamura, the Intercontinental Champion, on Raw as well. So they'll stick together, and maybe eventually we get Sami Zayn turning on Shinsuke and winning the belt, which would be cool. I like a face Sami as an Intercontinental Champion. You could have the potential for a lot of really good matches on Monday Night Raw with those two and with some other guys on the roster. I also have Sasha Banks on Monday Night Raw. Again, her feud with Becky Lynch. I think that that's going to continue on this brand. So I have Becky as well. She's the Raw Women's Champion. So that makes sense to me. Seth Rollins, another guy. Seth Rollins, a.k.a. the Universal Champion. Just another guy. No, he's the champ. You got to have him on the show with Bray Wyatt. Clear as day. I have Sheamus. I want him to come back. I want him to do something on Raw. He has a lot of potential opponents on this show as well. Shelton Benjamin, not sure what they're doing with him, but again, with a lot of the talent that I mentioned on this show, Shelton could work with any of those guys. Maybe you see a Shelton, Jason Jordan, and Chad Gable alliance at some point, maybe just to get a pop. I don't know. The Miz TV is going to be on Raw, and maybe he gets a shot at the Intercontinental Championship once again. I have Carmella coming over with R-Truth. And then, like I mentioned, Becky Lynch and Shinsuke, the champs. So on this show, the champs currently would be the Kabuki Warriors, Becky Lynch, Shinsuke Nakamura, Seth Rollins, R-Truth, and Ziggler and Rude. Now, moving over to SmackDown. I just remembered in my head that I forgot to write somebody down on this roster. So there's definitely gonna be a couple guys that I forget for sure. Now that I'm just thinking, and the funniest thing is he's literally like my favorite wrestler in the world right now, and that's Kevin Owens. So I'll start off with Kevin Owens being on SmackDown. I think that he's done so well on SmackDown that he should stay there. I have AJ Styles, the United States champion, which would mean the OC would also be coming over to SmackDown. And with the teams that I have on here, I think it'd be really cool to see them collide. Apollo Crews, a guy that I think could easily feud with AJ Styles. People are sleeping on Apollo Crews. I think that he's very, very talented and should get a shot on SmackDown. I have Bayley here. There's a lot of girls on this roster that I think she could have really good matches with. And I also wanted to split up Sasha and Bayley. I'm sick of the same feud and storyline over and over. So I split them up. I have Bobby Lashley with Lana here because I think that the feud of Bobby Lashley and Rusev could work almost like the bits that MVP and Matt Hardy were doing, where it's not really your main point of attraction, but you're still tuning in to see what's going on with those guys. So I like that there. Brock as the champ, he'll be there every once in a while, but there's a lot of guys that are be mentioned here that could easily take him on, like a Kevin Owens. I'd love to see that in the future. Cedric Alexander, I wanted to pack in this roster too with a lot of guys that could face off, sort of like Raw, having really good talent there and a really good core of talent on SmackDown, and Cedric could be really good facing AJ as well, continuing that. Charlotte Flair, the SmackDown Women's Champion, so the women that I mentioned here will face off with her, including Dana Brooke. I think that could be a really good match, depending on how WWE sees Dana right now. The Revival, right now the SmackDown Tag Champs, I want them to continue working with Randy Orton. Hopefully at some point they keep doing that. If not, the Revival still has a lot of teams that I'm going to mention here that could work. I have Drew McIntyre on this roster. Drew's got to just move on from Raw. I think that SmackDown, he could become a really dominant guy. And maybe if the belt shifts a couple times, he ends up becoming the SmackDown, the WWE SmackDown, champ, because it's just called the WWE Championship, but it's essentially SmackDown's belt on this show. I have EC3. He needs to get some more TV time. There's guys that he can work with on this show. I'm sick of him chasing the 24/7 championship. Ember Moon, I'd really like to see her face Charlotte. That'd be an excellent match, although I know they're both technically faces now. Maybe you turn Ember to a heel. I don't know. Rowan and Harper, again, I want them to be a tag team on SmackDown. The other teams that I'll mention, you'll see why. The Viking Raiders, could you imagine the chaos in the ring if those two had a match, those two matches? I have the Usos on SmackDown as well, because the Usos can work with any team. So if you want them in a storyline where they're heels, they can do it. If you want them in a storyline where they're faces, where they're the underdogs, whatever, the Usos can compete with anybody. So I have them here. I have Jinder Mahal returning on SmackDown. He just worked out better on SmackDown. He kind of got left in the shuffle on Raw. I have the Lucha House Party. They'll be a team that will make sense in here with some of the stuff that I want to do in the rebooking WWE series. I have the OC, like I mentioned. I have King Corbin. I think that I was thinking keep him on Raw, but I have a feeling they'll do that Chad Gable storyline with him for like 10 years. This probably isn't going to happen, splitting them up, but I want to split them up at this point. Lacey Evans, again, another good challenger for that SmackDown Women's Championship. Mandy Rose, same thing goes for her. I put Mojo Rawley on this list, and again, you watch, I'll forget a big name star, and I actually wrote down Mojo Rawley. I want him to finally just do something. I don't know what he'll do, but it's going to be on SmackDown. I have Naomi and Nia Jax, two more women's competitors. Naomi clearly being the better wrestler, but Nia... And again, I'm also going to mention this. There's a lot of people on the Raw and SmackDown roster that I can see getting moved to NXT. So maybe some of these people end up in NXT. For some reason, I've always had this idea that Nia Jax should go back to NXT, but I'll get to that in another video. I have No Way Jose, who definitely should go back to NXT. I think that he could do big stuff there, and he could have good matches there. No Way Jose is talented. But I hope that maybe he gets a shot at AJ Styles. Who knows? Maybe they have a couple decent matches on SmackDown. You never know. Heavy Machinery, another team that I wanted on here to fight for those tag belts. Randy Orton. I think he's just a SmackDown guy. With the talent that's here, he could work with a lot of people. Rey Mysterio, currently injured, I guess. I don't know if it's kayfabe, but Rey is a SmackDown guy, maybe with a limited schedule. Just makes sense for him to be here. Ricochet, again, another guy that goes in with the talent like Cedric Alexander, like an EC3 type, feud maybe eventually. You've got a lot of guys here that can work. I know people aren't going to want the AJ storyline to happen, so maybe eventually AJ drops the belt to somebody else, and Ricochet ends up the champ somehow. I don't know. That could work. Roman Reigns, I just think that he works on SmackDown. Again, another big name wrestler for SmackDown to work around. I have Ruby Riott here. I want her to fight for the championship at some point. I have Rusev to continue the feud with Bobby Lashley. I have Samoa Joe, another big name. You want another big name that can make sense to ultimately be the champion on the show, which I think is overdue. He should be a champion on Friday Night SmackDown. Sarah Logan, Sonya Deville, those are another two women's wrestlers that I think will eventually get a shot at the championship. The Undertaker, the reason I have him here, again, it's just another big name to be, a guy drafted. And of course, with the Saudi Arabia show coming up, you might see him come out wearing a SmackDown shirt underneath his jacket. I don't know. Whatever WWE decides to do with The Undertaker, he's probably going to get drafted just so people pop. The Ascension, not really sure what WWE is doing with them, but I mentioned a lot of really big tag teams, like physically wise, in here. I have an idea of a match that they could do with all these teams. And the last name on here is John Morrison. There's been rumors that John Morrison will be coming back. Friday Night Delight, Friday Night SmackDown, I think it would make sense. Maybe he has a feud with AJ Styles. I would definitely have him on Friday Night SmackDown, and we're not sure if that's going to happen. Maybe he ends up in NXT. I doubt it, but who knows? So, yeah, I have a massive Bristol board. I have a massive whiteboard, and these were all the people that I wrote down. I probably forgot a big name. I probably forgot somebody. If I did, let me know down below. I don't think that they're going to have any big NXT call-ups because NXT is running their own show right now. I could see NXT getting involved and maybe stealing a couple picks. I don't know. I don't think NXT is going to be involved in the draft, but it would be cool to see them come in and be like, hey, well, we already have Finn Balor. We already took Tyler Breeze and Fandango, and that's the thing. They're doing fine down there, and Finn's going to be great with NXT. You could see them. Could you imagine if you seen them come in and take a guy like Cedric Alexander away from one of these shows? Who knows? Who knows what could happen? It could be a Nia Jax, like I mentioned, but these are my picks. Let me know down below your picks and who I forgot, because I'm sure I did. I'll see you guys in the next video. This is What's Good in Wrestling. Peace.